What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Ian Ewing. Happy Week 10. We are here. It is Packers-Eagles, and on today's episode, we are going to preview it. Crazy to say, we're already at the halfway point of the season, and the Packers, they got probably one of their most important games of the whole season. I would say this one and the Lions game coming up here on Thanksgiving. Those two are the most important ones so far. In the opponent, they have the Eagles, who are 6-2 currently in first place in the NFC East. Let's go over the Eagles' rankings in terms of where they're at in offense and defense. Yards per game, they're 24th on offense, 19th in rushing yards per game, 25th in passing yards per game, and they're 10th in points per game. So I think their offense is pretty overrated this year. It doesn't mean they don't present some unique problems for the Packers, which we'll talk about, of course. The big number there that's striking to me is that they're 19th in rushing yards per game. Saquon Barkley broke almost every record last year imaginable for running backs for the Eagles. And, you know, if anybody who watched TV last year saw what Saquon did. He's on the cover of Madden, for God's sake. But they have not been able to recapture that magic here in 2025. Defensively, this is probably where the shocker really is. We'll get into DVOA rankings in a minute. They are 23rd in the NFL in yards per game allowed on defense. They're 19th in rushing yards per game, 120. So, again, 19th, they were really good stopping the run last year. The Packers actually had some success against them in both games with Josh Jacobs, ironically. Passing yards per game allowed, 17th. And they're actually 19th in points per game allowed, 23.1. So, you know, those numbers tell a story, right? They're definitely down from last season. It's not to say they're not scary. There are plenty of scary things about this team, which we'll talk about in a second. Let's go into DVOA. So for those of you that don't remember what DVOA is, it's basically they chart rankings like yards per game on offense, passing, rushing, but it figures in the strength of the opponent. So again, if you have 200 yards rushing against a bad team, it doesn't help you in DVOA as much as if you had 200 yards rushing against the first overall team, right? They're 9th on offense. So again, comparatively, regular rankings to DVOA, they're 9th. They have the 8th best passing offense DVOA, 13th rushing. So 9th overall, definitely a top 10 team. 13th in rushing, still striking because of how good Saquon was last year. On defense, though, this is where it gets interesting. They are 16th in DVOA on defense, 15th in passing defense, 26th in rushing defense. So I do think that they can be run on, and I do think that, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, massively important factor in this game. Last year, defensively, the Eagles had a massively talented pass rush that came at you in waves. I mean, look no further than the Super Bowl. They put Pat Mahomes in hell in the Super Bowl. It was one of the most dominant pass rushing performances I've ever seen in a Super Bowl. You know, typically the teams that are there are pretty talented on both sides of the ball, and they're uniquely good at pass protection, usually. And the Chiefs got completely eaten up by that pass rush. Now, they've definitely been a shell of themselves this year, to say the least. Now, they still have a lot of pressures, which we'll talk about, but they're not the defensive line they were last year. Their secondary, very good. They've been had a few times this year against some good quarterbacks. Dak ate them up in the first week of the season. Tampa Bay did pretty well against them as well. It just isn't the impenetrable defense that it was in 2024. And sorry if you guys hear the car revving in my parking lot here. This is live, so sometimes you got to deal with that stuff. The Eagles made some moves at the trade deadline that I thought were quite interesting to boost their pass rush and their secondary. They acquired Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins. I've always been a big fan of his. I don't know why the Dolphins traded him. I know the Dolphins are, in what I would call dire situation, and they need to start rebuilding that team. They obviously agree, but it's really, really hard to find pass rushers in this league, and they already paid Bradley Chubb. I think they should have paid Jalen Phillips to have a good pass rush on both ends there. But I digress. He's been pretty good this season. He's certainly going to help their pass rush. I don't know how much we see him in this game. I bet he plays half the snaps, if I had to guess. But the most interesting thing is they acquired a couple guys in the secondary. They acquired Michael Carter from the Jets, who I've been a big fan of for a long time. He when the Jets were in their, I would call, prime defense back in 2023, 2022 as well, Michael Carter was playing really, really good football. He's definitely more of a slot guy. So what I've been kind of hearing around the internet is that he's going to play slot. They're going to move Cooper DeJean outside. And I love Cooper DeJean, by the way. I think he's a little bit more susceptible to be beaten on the outside than in the inside. The most interesting move they made, though, was they acquired our old pal, Jair Alexander, from the Ravens, which I thought was quite interesting as well. He clearly found a favor with the Ravens. And I talked about it a few weeks back on the podcast. I'm not going to continue to lay it on thick here, but homie hasn't been good this year, to say the least. And I got two questions in week 3 after the Packers lost to the Browns. I don't know why it was the Browns game that prompted this question, but hey, should we have traded Jair Alexander? And I'm like, well, first of all, one of them asked why we traded him. We didn't trade him. We cut him. Why did we get rid of Jair? However you want to say it. You know, the dude has had a modicum of injuries, and when you get beat up as a cornerback, which in my opinion, the cornerback position is the one where you need to be a supreme athlete to be really good at it. It's very clear that injuries have hurt Jair and his athleticism. He's been getting beat pretty bad this whole season. In week 1, when he started for the Ravens, he got eaten alive by the Bills. And the Bills receivers aren't exactly great. So we'll just leave it at that. So the Eagles acquired him for chump change. They literally gave him a 7th-round pick. I think that was it. I think it's a 7th-round pick from next year. I could be wrong on that. I do think he will try to get on the field as hard as humanly possible to try to get a revenge game against his former team. And we'll talk about the game plan in a minute, but I would love to see Jair go one-on-one against Christian Watson and run deep on him. That'd be fun as hell. The big thing here, guys, the Eagles are coming off their bye week. They got a lot of starters coming back from injury. It looks like A.J. Brown will be back. Saquon Barkley was hurt as well. He's going to be playing in this game as well. Cam Jurgens, though, their center, who replaced the infamous Jason Kelce, he did not practice this week, and he has not played for a couple weeks, so we probably won't see him in this game. That'll be interesting to check out. I'm very curious how that will go. Okay, Packers, as far as injuries go, Lucas Van Ness and Nate Hobbs are going to be out for this game. Savion Williams looks like he's going to be back. He did not practice on Tuesday, I believe it was. Matthew Golden was limited on Wednesday. He did not practice on Thursday, Friday. That's interesting, and that's scary because I do think that now if we get Wicks back, which it looks like Wicks is going to be back as well, I do think that they'll be fine at the receiver position, but I really want to have everybody here for this game on Monday night. Colby Wooden, he will be back. He has been saying it all week. He will be playing in this game, and I think when he got hurt last week, it massively hurt their run defense. And I think you saw just how good he's been this year because when he left last week, really that's when Rico Dowdle kind of went nuts. And the guys who came in to replace him, Nazir Stackhouse has been really bad this year. And I was a pretty big fan of his, and I was a fan of them picking him up. He's not been good. Carl Brooks played bad last week. They really need Wooden back this week, especially against Saquon Barkley. So, okay. Let's talk about the Eagles offense, their top 5 players from PFF, and then the keys on defense for the Packers. Jalen Hurts is their number 1 ranked player on offense. He has an 82 overall grade, so he's ahead of Jordan Love this year. He's been pretty up and down. The game against the Vikings 2 weeks ago, Hurts had a crazy, I think it was like a 94 grade, one of the highest grades at quarterback this whole season. But there have been games this year where he hasn't even thrown for over 130 yards. One of the games they played, I don't remember which one, I think it was the Chiefs game. He had like 2 passing yards in the second half. So the Eagles have had some really bad games this year on offense. And Jalen Hurts has been up and down, to say the least. But he has been playing well the last 2 weeks. I do anticipate him having a good game in this one. He's my fantasy quarterback, which is why I'm intimately aware of how well he's been playing. So one of those lovely situations this weekend when my fantasy quarterback is, less important than real life. I really hope he doesn't have a ball-out game. Maybe he gets like a tush-push touchdown in there that gets me 10 points. Then we can just leave it there. Their number 2 ranked player is left tackle Jordan Mailata, 80.2 grade. Devontae Smith is number 3, their wide receiver, 79.2. I've always been a big fan of Devontae Smith. When he came out of college from Alabama, he was picked, I believe, 7 overall by the Eagles. 6'1", 175 pounds coming out, and I don't even know if he weighed that. Very small framed guy, but he separates like crazy. He's fast. He's athletic. He's actually had a better season this year than A.J. Brown. He's been able to sneak away deep a few times the last few weeks. I think he is a nightmare matchup for Keyshawn Nixon. I think Carrington Valentine should cover him this whole game. Nixon's going to do better against A.J. Brown. I don't like either of those matchups, by the way, which we'll talk about. Lane Johnson, their right tackle, number 4 with 76.3. He has an 80 pass blocking grade, though. So he is his normal self, dominant self in the pass blocking realm. Their number 5 overall player is A.J. Brown, the wide receiver, with a 74.1. So A.J. Brown, he's been pretty good this year. When he's played, he's been hurt a bit. There have been some rumblings. Maybe some of you have heard about this. He's not been very happy with his target share and his place on the team. There was some, what I would call murmurs of him wanting to get traded at the trade deadline. I wish they would have traded him to an AFC team. That would have made them massively vulnerable. But I digress. He's the scariest thing on offense going against the Packers, in my opinion. They do have a deep wide receiver room. Their number 3 is Jahan Dotson. He was a first-round pick from the Commanders back in, I believe it was 2021. I could be wrong on the year there. He's kind of their slot guy. He's a really good player. I think they only gave up a 4th-round pick for him a few years back, and he's a sneaky good player, and I really liked him coming out of the draft. He was never going to be a Packer, by the way. I think he was picked before the Packers picked anyway. It was 2022. That's when it was, because it was the same year they picked up Christian Watson. Anyway, they don't really have anybody outside of Dotson and the other 2 wide receivers that are scary at all. But again, I don't think John Dotson is a slump or a bad player by any means. And I don't want to see him one-on-one with Javon Bullard. I'll just say that. Dallas Goedert is their tight end. He's always been a little bit overrated. I saw some tight end rankings a while back that had him as a top 3 tight end. I'm like, hell no. Granted, he did stiff arm Carrington Valentine into hell last year in the playoffs, but I digress. He's a good tight end, and we all know so far the Packers don't do well against tight ends. So hopefully he has a quiet game in this one, but we should all be aware of his presence at all times. Offensive line, my God, they have 2 of the best at tackle, probably the best tackle duo in the NFL, and Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. If anybody can stop the Packers pass rush, it's these guys. The interior, though, is where they're susceptible. I think Micah going up the middle in this game is something they should do a lot of. Cooper and Walker on the linebacker blitzes, they've been really good this season. Somebody needs to spy Jalen Hurts. I'm not massively worried about his legs in this one, but I do think that I don't even have it as one of my keys because I think there's more important things, but you could also see a world where Jalen Hurts runs for 75 yards and he gets all of them on 3rd down. Somebody in the linebacking room has to pay attention to him. We'll just say that. But they still need to get pressure, so it's going to be a weird position to be in. I do like Cooper and Walker on those blitzes, though, in this game. Running back, they have the reigning Offensive Player of the Year in Saquon Barkley, the Madden cover guy. He gave the Packers a lot of trouble last year. In the Brazil game, there was a run of his where he just had 2 inches of room and he slithered through there and got 40 yards. The Packers have to make damn sure he does not go off in this game. And again, up until last week, I wouldn't have been super worried about the run defense, but the Packers run defense got diced up last week. And in Hafley's presser this week, he kind of said, it was mostly just bad scheme and not knowing where they're supposed to be. They didn't get manhandled up front or anything like that. I would probably agree with that, but I just hope they take this seriously because, again, this is not the game we want to see Saquon go for 100. I want Jalen Hurts to beat this team. If anybody beats the Packers this week, it should be Jalen Hurts, and that is key number 1. Make Jalen Hurts beat you, stop the run. This running game, I mentioned it earlier in the rankings, it is not what it was last season. I think the interior of the offensive line is to blame for that. It just feels like they're not really moving guys in the run game. And again, one of the reasons Saquon was so good last year is because he wasn't getting hit until 5 yards deep. So contrary to Jacobs, where he's getting hit 2 yards after, taking the handoff, which is insanely bad, Saquon was getting hit first contact at 5.5 yards last year. So the dude, on top of having a lot of room to run, he's just a massively talented guy. You can't let Saquon beat you in this game. This cannot be a game like last week where they, run at the pass rush and slow them down. Again, 9 pressures on 19 dropbacks is decent, but they were ineffective, the Packers pass rush, because of the run game. They also shortened the game. The Packers had 3 possessions in the first half. That cannot happen in this game. And then most importantly, if you get into 3rd and short with this team, they're just going to run that effing tush push the whole time, and they're not afraid to run it on 4th down. So if you stop them on 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, they're just going to run it on 4th down. So this has to be a game where you force them into 3rd and long or 3rd and 6 plus. So again, this can't be the game where Saquon dices you up and then Jalen Hurts has 40 tush pushes to rub it in the Packers' face, and then they, keep converting that way. It just can't be that. If Jalen Hurts drops back 30 times in this game and he wins it with his arm, you just tip your cap, ultimately. And obviously I hope that doesn't happen, but don't make this a game where the run game ruins it for you again. Key number 2, this probably is the key case in every game, right? But it's most important in this game of the whole season. The pass rush needs to go nuts in this game. That's key number 2. This is probably the best offensive line that they'll face in terms of the tackles so far this season. Coming up, the Broncos' offensive line is the best in the league by basically every metric. And we play them in a month, which is crazy. In Denver, by the way. The Lions, they're obviously good too. This is a game where the pass rush has to go crazy. And I'm looking at you, Micah. He had his worst game as a Packer last week. You could easily blame the way the Panthers played the game. I do, in fact, blame the way the Panthers played the game. But he didn't have like a blow-up game either against the Steelers. Rashawn Gary has been really good the past 2 weeks. He's definitely turned it on a bit. He had 3 pressures last week. I think he had 2 more at least that were washed away with penalties. His win rate, pass rush win rate, has been about 22% the last 3 games. That's really good. And we are going to need him to step up because I guarantee you that they are going to try to lock up Micah in this one. So I think Rashawn Gary needs to go nuts. There has to be a game. This has to be a game where he just turns it on because, Micah's going to get double teamed and the Packers have to prove that they can win against the other guys. I think Green Bay is really missing Lucas Van Ness. I never thought I would say that coming into the season, but when he comes back, I think it's going to make a big, big difference. It sounds like Devontae Wyatt is probably close to 100% this week, as close to 100 as you can be in week 10 or whatever. But the interior of this offensive line is where you can win a lot. This has to be a game where Devontae Wyatt goes crazy. In fact, I think he's probably more important than Micah in this game. There have been games where we've seen Wyatt take over in his career. He did it earlier this season against the Lions. I thought he had like 9 pressures in that game. If you can get pressure up the middle on Jalen Hurts, remember he's a shorter quarterback too. You can really, really rattle him. Make him run outside, and then you just get one of those linebackers to get up and hit him. If you can rattle him, Jalen Hurts can be beaten. And they need that this week. So winning this game, obviously, it's extremely important, and we'll talk about why later on. But they have to win up front in this game. They have got to get pressure on Jalen Hurts. If they can do it with 4, that's just going to make it that much easier, right? I firmly believe their lack of getting pressure on Hurts in that playoff game, that's why Goody traded for Micah Parsons. I really do believe that. That game, there was a play, and some of you might remember it, where Jalen Hurts had like 7 seconds to throw the ball. And that is just completely unacceptable. Like it was the first play after Keyshawn Nixon fumbled on the kickoff. And Jalen Hurts threw a touchdown on that play. They were completely ineffective in that game, rushing Jalen Hurts. And remember, this was a 16-10 game in the fourth quarter, right? Anyway, pass rush needs to be good in this one. Key number 3, the cornerback play has got to be good in this game. Now, if you all said, what are you most concerned about in this game, Ian? It's the wide receivers against Nixon and Valentine. And honestly, like I said earlier, I'm probably even more scared about Dotson against Javon Bullard. I love Javon Bullard. He's played well this year, but he's not a one-on-one, lock-up kind of guy. He's just not. I do think they are going to challenge the Packers deep as much as humanly possible, and they need to be effing ready because I guarantee you they've watched the tape, and they saw what DK did. They saw what Marvin Harrison Jr.'s done. They've been diced up from bigger receivers this year. I do think Carrington Valentine's going to play well. I'm mostly scared about Nixon. He started the season so well, and I was like, man, maybe I was wrong about Key. I always thought Keyshawn was more underrated than overrated. But in the past few weeks, he's been pretty bad, just to be honest. And that makes it even more important to have these safeties ready to play. And I didn't know this today, guys, but the Packers coverage grade is number 1 in the NFL from PFF. And PFF has its shortcomings for sure, but they usually do a pretty good job of identifying who's getting beaten a lot in coverage. It always matches the all-22 when you watch it. So for them to have an 80 coverage grade, that's huge. It is not from the corners. Carrington has a 72 grade from PFF, but it's the linebackers, it's the safeties that have high coverage grades on the Packers. And they all need to step up in this one. They covered really, really well in the back end last year with the same guys, by the way, against the Eagles in both games. Jalen Hurts did not dice up this team, especially in that playoff game. The Eagles defense won that playoff game. So we need to see a bounce back game from the corners, and I hope all the conversation about Asante Samuel Jr., which, by the way, I really hope that they do sign him. Looks like he's got a few more visits. He hasn't signed with anybody yet, but the visit did go well, per reports. I think it pissed off Keyshawn. It probably pissed off Carrington Valentine to see that they were probably going to sign another corner. Let it piss you off. Show up in this game. That's all I'm asking, please. The more important, it just makes it even more important for the pass rush to come up big, right? So players to watch on defense, just quick. Devontae Wyatt, I think he has a big game in this one. Micah Parsons facing his old rivals. This is where we get that contract payoff right here. He gets paid for games like this. We need a 10-plus pressure performance from Micah in this one. And then probably most importantly, Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney being good in this one. They're going to try to beat the Packers deep. They just are. And I do think they're initially going to try to run the ball with Saquon. I think the Packers will bottle it up. And then they're going to try to hit him over the top. So we'll see what happens. Okay, let's get into the top 5 players on defense for the Eagles and how the Packers should try to stop them on offense or beat them on offense. Josh Uche, their edge, is their number 1 graded player with an 84 grade. He's a bit of a part-time player. He's kind of a reclamation project from the Patriots. He was on the Chiefs, I believe, last year for their run. And the Eagles did sign him in the offseason or traded for him, one of the two. They like to use him on third down, the obvious passing situations, but he has their highest pass rushing grade. So definitely got to be aware of him. Number 2, the rookie, Jihad Campbell from Alabama, is their second highest graded player with an 83 grade. Again, if you guys listen to I think it was my under the radar players to watch for the Packers in round 1, Jihad Campbell's insanely good, guys. I was a big fan of his in the draft. He's played really, really well for the Eagles. Number 3 is Zach Bond, their other linebacker, 80 grade. Bit of a down year compared to last season, but still playing well. And then Moro Ajomo, their defensive tackle, he is 79.5, their number 4 overall player. I'd never even heard of this guy, to be honest. He's got 28 pressures this year on the interior. That's pretty good. So definitely got to pay attention to him. And then number 5 is Cooper DeJean with a 77 grade, 80 coverage grade for DeJean. He's had a bit of a poor performance against the run this year and tackling, but he's good in coverage. We talked a little bit about it in the front of this episode. The defensive line is not what it was last year, but they still have Jalen Carter. He, if you guys remember, got removed from the Dallas game, the first game of the year, because he spit on Dak, which is crazy and hilarious at the same time and not funny at the same time. You know what I mean? He could still wreck a game. This season's not been great, though, and they kind of counted on him becoming your Chris Jones, Aaron Donald type, obviously to a lesser extent. He only has a 64 grade this year and only 20 pressures. So Jalen Carter's not been this dominant player that everybody thought. And you see it on tape. He gets blocked up pretty good. He's really easy to take advantage of in the run. The other guy they got in the interior is Jordan Davis. So he definitely plays the early downs. He has a 74 grade. So he's been pretty good. He's probably never lived up to his draft position. If you guys remember, he ran like a 4.7 as a defensive tackle, 330, like freakish athlete. But he's never quite lived up to his draft stock. Jalix Hunt is another one of their edge players. He's got 28 pressures on the year. He is a second-year guy. I liked him coming out of the draft, too. He's been good for them. And then they have Nolan Smith, who's also coming back from injury. He played well against the Packers last year in the playoffs. They also have, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name. The guy that just unretired, whatever. They had just had one of their guys unretire. You guys will probably hear about it in the game. It's his first game back. I cannot remember his damn name. I don't think he's going to play much in this game. That's going to bother me, and I don't want to pull up my notes because it's not that big of a deal. But And then obviously they have Jalen Phillips at edge. And so they got a good edge group. I don't want to undersell it, but they definitely aren't. They're not as good as the Steelers front, and they're certainly not as good as the Lions have been this year. And the Packers' pass protection has been quite good outside of really basically every game this season that they've all been healthy. So linebacker-wise, we talked about it, Zach Bond, Jahad Campbell. They also have Nakobe Dean at linebacker. One thing you notice about them, and I've heard others say this as well, this is not an original thought, but they get a little bit over-aggressive in coverage at times, and I definitely think you can take advantage of them there. Maybe look for Luke Musgrave to have a big game in this one, possibly. They are good against the run, though. Their defensive line is the reason why their run defense has been bad. It just has not been what it was last season. Cornerback-wise, yeah, we talked about corner quite a bit. Cooper DeJean, he is so damn good, guys. I was probably his biggest fan in the world in the draft last season. The reason he fell to the second round and the Packers didn't pick him is because he didn't really have a firm position. There were some teams that saw him as a safety. Some saw him as an outside corner. Some saw him as a nickel. I don't think that it was very clear, and I don't think the Packers thought that it was clear either, and that's why they didn't pick him high. That was a mistake, if you ask me, but I digress. My favorite player on their whole team, though, is Quinyon Mitchell, their cornerback. He looked like he was falling in the draft. The Packers were at 24 in the 24 draft, something like that. The Eagles traded above the Packers 2 picks in front of him and picked him. And I thought if he was there, the Packers would have drafted him full stop. And he is a phenomenal player. He's been a little bit quiet this season compared to last season. He's got a 68 coverage grade. He's been beaten a little bit by the better receivers, but he's better than all the Packers receivers. You're not going to beat this dude one-on-one. If they do, I will stand corrected. I will be more than happy. He gets a bit grabby. I think he's got 7 penalties this season. So, again, I think the cornerback room is good as well. Safety-wise, they have a rookie, Andrew Makuba, who I really like. And then their other safety is Blankenship. He picked off Jordan Love last year. Not super concerned about either of them, to be honest. The key number one in offense, be patient. The Panthers played 2 deep safeties that whole game last year. They forced Green Bay to be patient, make mistakes in the red zone, and it worked perfectly. And this week they play Vic Fangio, who is the godfather of that style of defense. The Panthers defensive coordinator is Ejiro Evero. He is a Fangio disciple. So again, Vic Fangio saw what the Packers did last week, and he's probably licking his chops saying, I'm going to beat the hell out of this team. The Eagles are better than the Panthers. Spoiler alert on defense. It's not close. So the Packers have to be able to get them out of that too high shell. Again, 2 safeties back, playing and preventing deep balls. You do that by taking what the defense gives you. If you force the ball downfield, it's going to lead to a ugly interception like we saw last week from Jordan. The Packers have got to be efficient in this game. Take the checkdowns. If you get a rare opportunity to beat someone deep, you need to hit it. You have to hit it. You can't miss those because you're only going to get so many opportunities in this game. So they have to attack this defense. I think Golden, Wicks, Dobbs, they can all win in the middle of the field, that 5 to 15-yard window. That's the way you beat a Fangio defense. And you get in between one of those zones, and Jordan needs to be, he needs to be sharp in this game. The defense for the Eagles, this is interesting. They are only 24th in the league at preventing third downs. So again, the Packers have one of the best third down teams in the league. The Eagles are a very low-ranked defense in preventing or stopping third down conversion. So I do think that third down could have a big impact in this game. However, the Eagles are one of the best red zone defenses in the whole league. So again, you can beat them between the 20s, but when you get inside the 20, it's not good. And you can't go 1 for 5 in the red zone like last week. That's what the Packers did against the Panthers. Cannot happen. They've got to be better than this one. Key number 2, use a short passing game. In 2023, the Packers went on that heater at the end of the season. In 2021, they lost Aaron Jones. They got hot still. They won some games. And they did it because Matt LaFleur used a really effective short passing game. And the best way to get teams out of that too high shell is you have an effective short passing game. And you run the damn ball, by the way. We all know they've had a hard time running the ball. That's key number 4, by the way. Wink, wink. Jordan's got to be patient in this game. This is not the game to take shots deep. This is not the game to, I'm going to let my guys win one-on-one. It's not the game for that. Let LaFleur design an offense, and you run the plays the way it's supposed to be run. I want to see him attack the middle of the field between the safeties and linebackers, and you got the guys that can do it. I think Musgrave's going to have a sneaky good game in this one. Everybody's overlooking Luke Musgrave, probably rightfully so, but I want them to attack this defense right up the seam. I really do. Key number 3, win the turnover battle. This is ever so important in this game. Last year, the Packers lost to all the good teams. And, spoiler alert, they've lost to 2 bad teams this season. And last year, they lost those good teams because they turned the ball over. Look no further than the Keyshawn Nixon fumble against the Eagles, the one that he recovered, by the way, and the refs gave to the Eagles. Yeah, still doesn't make any sense. That playoff game, though, Jordan threw 3 interceptions. And even in week 1, he threw that, what I would call an ugly pick to Blankenship. It was kind of a miscommunication with Musgrave, but either way, you cannot beat a good team like this, even when you're at home, if you turn the ball over. The only way you do that is if you force 2 or 3 of your own, which we'd love to see. I want to see a clean game from Jordan. I want to see a clean game on special teams. For the love of God, no fumbling the damn ball. When you're running with the ball, hold on to it. Don't let him knock it out. You know the drill. I do think that this might be the game where we see the Packers defense take the ball away a little bit more. So run the damn ball is number 4. Last but not least, this is going to be probably a key every single week going forward. But on a game like this against a Fangio defense, they got to do it. Last week felt like it was a good game from Josh Jacobs, right? He averaged over 5 yards a carry for the first time all season. There were a lot of plays that were blocked up super well. And despite losing Aaron Banks in that game, who's been playing well, by the way, he's going to be back for this game too, which is good. Jacobs had a good game both times last year against the Eagles. You guys remember the touchdown run against the Eagles right at the end of the third quarter. One of the craziest, tough, sick runs that I've ever seen in my life. So you got to get the run game going in this one. Let Josh Jacobs take over the game. That's only going to open up explosive plays that they want to hit, right? I've said it in the podcast a few times. I want to double down here. Early in the season, teams came into Packer games saying, we need to stop Josh Jacobs. They saw, and this is true last year, he was their best player last season. But after a few weeks, they realized Jordan in the passing game is the best thing about this offense. And that's when teams started to bring that other safety back. And that's why it's so important now that they establish the run. And that's why they have not been super good on offense, because they can't run the damn ball. So if they can even become average to maybe 14th in the league in running the damn ball, you guys have no idea the difference that would make. So again, that's how you keep from being predictable. That's how you keep the safety from being back, where you can start hitting some of those big plays. We want teams to take Josh Jacobs away. That's what we want them to think that they have to do. And if they can figure that out, and they won't be able to do that until they start being successful, once they do, that's when this offense can hit their ceiling and be unstoppable. And I'd love it if it started in this game. That would be fantastic. Final prediction, final thoughts. Well, again, I said at the beginning, this is the most important game of the season so far for the Packers. I want to start off by saying this, though. If they lose this game, this does not mean their season's over. Nothing dramatic like that, and I'll say this when I come back on the podcast if they lose this game. And I do think they are going to lose. I'll get into that in a second. To have a shot at the playoffs, they need to win at least 10 games, probably 11. That would mean they need to go 5-4 in this final stretch, and they'll still hit 10 wins. Maybe they get hot again like they did in 2023. They can win 3 road games. It's certainly possible, and I'll stand behind the fact that I do think this is a Super Bowl roster. But because of that, it makes losses like this one and last week more devastating. If they lose this game, they go 5-3. The tough part of the schedule is coming up. And they got a lot of road games against some good teams. The NFC North right now, it's heating up in general. The Lions lost last week, yeah. But they're still a really good team. The Bears, they're playing well. I don't see them as a true contender. They've not beaten anyone good. And when they've played good teams, they've been really bad. But the Vikings, sneaky good too. They just beat the damn Lions in Detroit. So I do think this game is really, really important. I think if they can win this game, it catapults them to playing the kind of football they need to be playing. And I'll say this, it doesn't even mean they have to win it. They just need to show up and play their best. If the Eagles' best is better than ours at the time being, that's fine. You got 9 weeks to get it better before the playoffs, or 8 weeks after this game. I just can't watch another game where they play B- football, they leave a ton of plays on the field, they come out flat, go out and play a complete game, and if they do that, they should win this game. I will maintain this Packers team has a higher ceiling than anybody else in the NFL, including the Eagles. The Eagles looked terrible against the Giants, by the way. They lost. That's the first game they lost. They got the hell beat out of them by Denver, and that's physically they got dominated. And the Broncos, by the way, barely beat the Raiders last week. So again, there have been reports of friction in the locker room with this team. They're just not the juggernaut they were last season. So go into the game with your hair on fire. Everybody picked the Eagles this week, by the way. Let it piss you off. Go out there and show that this is a damn good team and execute the damn plays. If they do that, I firmly believe the Packers will win this game. That said, got some tough games coming up. It's it's New York Giants at New York next week. That's a sneaky tough game. The Eagles have a really nasty pass rush. I think Jackson Dart's really good. Then it's a home game against the Vikings, and I'll be at that game. Cannot wait to take my wife to Lambeau for the first time. And then it's this Thanksgiving showdown against the Lions. That's going to be a huge, huge game. A lot of important games coming up. A lot of reasons for this team to be fired up. And like I previously said, it's the total opposite of last year, right? They killed all the bad teams last year and lost to the good ones. This year, they've played well against the good ones, especially at home. And then they come out flat against the bad ones. So in this game, take the ball, go down and score a touchdown, let the Packers defense take over. Simple as that. Lastly, just really quick, Bisaccia said McManus is going to be kicking on Monday and that he's, quote, getting healthier. So he's not perfectly healthy. I have no clue why they're not giving it to the healthy kicker. I will say that. They cannot afford to miss kicks in this game. And if McManus is going to kick, he better make his damn kicks. And I really hope I'm wrong, but I'm about to predict it anyway. A missed kick in this game probably costs them the game. And that brings me to my prediction. I think the Packers end up losing on a last-second field goal, 24-23. I bet they look good on both sides of the ball here with some bad luck somewhere. And then they use this as a springboard to start winning some games. There's a lot of winnable games coming up. I think it all starts in New York next week. Their streak begins. So far, they've won every game that I predicted they lose. Hopefully that happens again in this one. And that'll do it for today's episode, guys. Monday Night Football, Eagles-Packers at Lambeau. Big, big, big game. Can't wait to talk about it afterwards. Hopefully this isn't another game that I turn off at halftime and pray that they win. But I'll see you guys next week. We'll talk about the game then. In the meantime, go Pack Go.